Cyanotypes are almost as old as photography itself. Fox Talbot invented the negative positive process in 1839. This gentleman, who was John Herschel, invented the cyanotype process in 1841. Herschel was a polymath. He was a mathematician, astronomer, chemist, inventor, and for our purposes, an experimental photographer. He invented the cyanotype by mixing two compounds together. These compounds are ferric ammonium citrate and potassium ferricyanide. When mixed together, they produce a light sensitive compound which will turn cyan or blue in the presence of ultraviolet light. This process has been used very successfully in photography, and mostly it's been used in drafting offices where it proved to be a very cost-effective way of producing large formats pictures of buildings. We call them blueprints. My favourite book on this subject was produced by Linda McCartney. Long before the Veggie Burgers, long before she married Paul McCartney, she was renowned as a photographer. In the 1980s, she discovered this idea of cyanotypes, or other light activated printing methods, which she called sunprints, and she produced an excellent book on this process. Here are a couple of the images that she produced. Sunprints included other processes as well, so although we have other cyanotypes, there are a few other processes in here as well. And certainly when I'm seeking inspiration about this type of work, this is the book that I come back to. So if you want an excellent book on cyanotypes, Sunprints by Linda McCartney, published in 1988. The top of this table used to be a light pine colour, but as you can see it's becoming increasingly blue over time. And that's because I use it a lot for cyanotype printing, mixing up the chemicals and coating the paper onto the chemicals. Here are my two cyanotype chemicals. The red one is potassium ferricyanide. The green one is ferric ammonium citrate green. And as you can see, there are different quantities in each bottle. The ratio is about 2 to 5, so this is 10 grams of the potassium ferricyanide and 25 grams of the ferric ammonium citrate green. These bottles are 100 millilitres each. So it's very simple. All I have to do is fill each of the bottles up to the shoulder and then mix them together in a tray, which is what I'm about to do. Having filled the bottles with water, mix it up thoroughly and mix the two bottles together. I'm actually going to use this old food container to contain the liquid. These two bottles combined are 200 millilitres, and that will do about 40 to 50 sheets of A4, so it spreads quite a long way. So having used my sponge brush to soak up the water, then I spread it evenly onto, well, in this case, watercolour paper. It's not ideal. It's not a very fine paper, but for the purposes of the print that I'm going to make, it will do fine. when the entire print, or at least as much of the print that I want is covered, then I need to make sure that this dries very, very well before I move on to the next step. Here's the image I'm going to use for my prints. I found this on the internet. It's a royalty-free stock image, so I'm allowed to use it. If I did it this way around, of course, I would end up with dark background and a light Hare. Actually, I want that to be the other way around. So I've inverted it using Affinity Photo, so now that it looks like that. All I need to do now is to print it off onto an A4 sheet of acetate to produce my negative to work with when I go outside into the sun. So, here's my Hare negative. As I said, I've printed it onto a piece of acetate sheet. It's really important to use the right type of sheet for your printer. I have an HP LaserJet printer, so I use HP LaserJet acetates. If I used inkjet acetates, they would melt inside the printer. So getting the right thing is actually quite important. Now the principle is actually quite simple. I need a board. Here's my board. As you can see, it's been used for many things before. I lay my piece of cyanotype paper on it. Let's assume this is my piece of paper for argument's sake. I place the Hare over the top of it, then I press the whole lot down with a sheet of glass and I tape the glass into place. Now this isn't going to give me the sort of detail that Linda McCartney got with her sun prints. There are a number of reasons for that. Firstly, there isn't the detail in my negative. More importantly, the paper just isn't flat and fine enough. To do the sort of prints that McCartney did, you need extremely fine rag paper, you need extremely detailed and very good contrast negatives, so ideally contact sheeting from a large format camera, and you need a very substantial weight over the top to make sure everything is in perfect flatness and register. However, I don't really need to get that amount of detail for the project that I want to do today. What I have realised, of course, is that actually I'd rather have the Hare pointing in the other direction. So when I do it for real, I'm actually going to turn the negative over. But I need good sunlight for that, so I'm going to wait until tomorrow morning to do that. Right, fairly bright out here. As you can see, I've weighted down my board with a little bee house. Hopefully it won't blow away in the next 15 minutes. But I am ably assisted by the cat. So, 15 minutes later. Don't know if you can see, but there's been a slight colour change. All I need to do now is soak this in the bath for about 15 minutes. As you can see, the Hare is now developing nicely. I'm going to leave this in the bath here for about 15 minutes and then I'm going to dry it off and have a look at the finished print. And when it's dry, this is what the print looks like. It's not bad, but I think I can do better. This was a 15-minute exposure, so I'm going to try another print. I'm going to try for 30 minutes. Hopefully I will get slightly darker Hare, but more importantly I'd like a little bit of detail around here. I'd like that to be somewhere between the dark blue here and the white here. I won't film it all again because the process is exactly the same, but all I'm going to do is take another piece of paper, take it outside, do exactly what I did before, but this time double the exposure, so 30 minutes. And here we have the final print. All I need to do now is get it framed, wrapped up. It's Christmas Eve today, so this needs to be delivered this afternoon. And there you have it. A unique Christmas present.